Welcome to The Subject is Moot, where everything we discuss is debatable. I am Dom, and across from me is
Mike.
And a special thanks to Vinny and Quiz, the producers of the podcast. We want to hear from you, so write in your opinion, comments, or topics you want us to talk about to thesubjectismoot@yahoo.com, and we will bring them up during future shows. You could also follow us on Twitter at TSIM_podcast, as well as Facebook and Instagram. You can watch our podcast on YouTube. You can listen on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Libsyn, radio.com, and more. Just Google The Subject is Moot podcast, and you will find us. Behind the mics for episode 35. Mike, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
You got some good stuff you want to talk about?
Of course.
Good.
I'm always ready with music. You know that.
Well, we have a lot to discuss, but before we get started, we have to thank Sweetwater for providing music, instruments, and pro audio since 1979. They have excellent products, pricing, and customer service. They also offer interest-free financing, shipping, and free 2-year warranty, which comes with nearly every product they offer. They are located in the United States in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Call 800-222-4700 for sales assistance, technical questions, or advice. You could also visit their website, sweetwater.com. Also, can't forget to mention Musicians Practice Gloves, which I stumbled across, which is right here. How do you like my little display there? For those
waving. It's waving.
It's waving. It's waving at the camera. For those musicians who need to wear gloves for various reasons, whether it's medical conditions, neurological conditions, arthritis, hyperhidrosis, which is sweaty hands, outdoor gigs, you're laughing, outdoor gigs, warm or cold weather, and many more reasons. It's now that I stumbled upon these that I see a lot of people wearing gloves when they play. And I am definitely one of them. I have sweaty hands, and let me tell you, they certainly give me the confidence to play again. Visit musicianslive.org to check out the gloves and how to go about ordering them. I think that's it for me, Mike.
You done?
I'm done.
Finished?
I am. So why don't you start us off? I know you have a lot to discuss. I know you have your artist of the podcast. You have some releases you want to talk about.
Yes, sir.
As well as, I think you're going to also...
We'll dive right in then.
You know what?
This one's for you and my brother, actually. I got an artist of the podcast for you and my brother. It's dedicated to the two of you.
Now, let me ask you a question. What does that mean?
Well, my artist of the podcast for this month, show, I should say.
Is that a mock on us?
No, not at all. This is, I told you, it's a dedication to your, your love of bass playing.
Oh, good.
My artist of the podcast this month is a band called Omnific, OMNIFIC.
I love them.
They are a bass band, basically. Yeah. There's no guitar. It's just two bass players and a drummer. But their writing is, to me, outstanding. And normally, I don't like bass instrumentals too much because I need like a band situation. But these guys write really well. And what they do is just amazing. They have 3 records out. They're on Bandcamp, but I'm sure they're everywhere. Check them out. They're absolutely outstanding. The writing is great. Their playing is great. It's not overly technical, kind of, but,
It is. I listen to them. It is technical, but you know what? It's melodic. So
super melodic.
So it's like a Satriani-esque type music where it's melodic, it's technical and melodic at the same time.
Right.
And I actually listen to Omnific all the time, and yes.
I'm surprised you do. My brother's a big fan of theirs, but I don't know any bass player cannot be a fan of theirs. Yeah. If you play bass, check them out. If you don't, they're still worth checking out because I don't play bass that much. But
I didn't think
their
you
music
played
is
at all.
Great. Well, I pick it up once in a while.
Well,
dabble.
You dabble.
For the release corner, my new release corner, we're going to go back in time a little bit, and just in case anybody missed some of the really good rock metal releases that came out in January, check them out. I'm just going to give you the band's names in case you didn't know they had new albums out. Haunted, great band. I'm sorry, Haunt, Haunt. Their new album came out. Sons of Apollo, which I'm sure any Dream Theater fan knows. That record came out. For the death metal fans out there, a band called Wormholes, new record came out. You're on Land put a record out that was like 80s covers.
What's it called?
You're on Land's album?
Yeah. I didn't hear what you said.
It's like rock. I think it's called like Rock Radio, okay. Where he did like some covers of some obscure 70s and 80s songs that I guess he must have grown up listening to. but it's him singing. So for you on land fans, it's worth the price of admission. Thought Factory, great prog band, came out with a new album. Jake Wilson, who is a beast of a guitar player, he came out with a new record. Dirty Shirley, which is another George Lynch project, he came out with a new record. Clint Lowry from Seven Dust came out with a new album, and a great instrumental band called Stomb, S-T-O-M-B. That also came out. They also came out with a new record in January. So in case you missed any of those good releases, if you were into rock, metal, check those releases out at your leisure. And one last segment, my three guitarists to the podcast this month are Nili Brosh. She has been around for quite a bit. She has 3 albums out. Her new album came out at the tail end of last year.
How do you spell that name?
Nilibrosh. Great record. Jake Wilson, who I just mentioned, came out with an album in January. Phenomenal. It's like kind of fusiony, metal prog, a little bit of jazz thrown in. Guy's great songs. And David Pepi, Davidpepi, great young guitarist out of Italy. Phenomenal. You can find them all on either Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes. I'm sure you'll be able to, find them on any of those formats. 3 great guitarists for sure.
Well, I think we mentioned this before that you are on Instagram. So if anybody out there has any questions for Mike on Instagram, his Instagram name is Mike_TSIM.
Yep.
So you could instant message him. You could contact him directly if ever you want to have some back and forth with a lot of his new releases, guitarists, and the artists of the podcast. So definitely check out Mike on Instagram.
I also follow bassists and drummers as well.
No, you follow everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody that's working.
Majority of it's guitarists. I'm not gonna lie,
but Mike at TSIM, Mike_TSIM. That's your Instagram name.
And please, if you have a guitarist or a bassist or a drummer or a singer or keyboardist that you want to recommend, hit me up.
Steve from New Jersey.
What's up, Steve?
Steve wrote in. He wrote in actually a few things. He even has a question.
Appreciate that.
And I'm just going to kind of read it off because he kind of summarized in his message here that, he covered a lot of different episodes. So for him, his best Van Halen song is Little Guitars.
Amazing. From Diver Down.
And he agrees with the Thunder Road and the Funeral for a Friend as being great songs as well. And that was when we picked our ultimate compilation, right? The songs that we could just listen to over and over again. And
like Desert Island songs type of thing.
Yeah. So although Thunder Road, I don't think I picked that, but that is definitely a song you could listen to over and over again. And I believe that's what he was referring here. Some of his choices would be Genesis, Supper's Ready, UK in the Dead of the Night.
Nice.
Tull, One White Duck, ELP, Pictures at an Expedition.
Exposition.
I'm sorry.
Is it Expedition?
No,
yeah,
it is.
It's Expedition.
It's Exhibition.
Exhibition, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. And yes, Close to the Edge.
Beautiful. He's a prog fan, I guess.
He is.
70s, too.
Yep.
And UK, that's good. That's a good
good list, right?
Yeah.
Bruce would, let's see here. So I think Bruce would be up there with Freddie and David for best frontmen ever, like we were talking about a few episodes ago.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce is a great frontman, but not in the same vein as those as Freddie and Roth, though. He's not flamboyant. He doesn't run around the stage. The guy just puts on an absolute beast of a show, but I don't know if he would be considered the same type of frontman as Freddie Mercury or Roth or those guys.
Probably not theatrical in those senses, but I mean he does.
That's what I'm saying. He puts on. Listen,
he's like a preacher up there.
The guy's amazing.
Yeah,
his shows are amazing.
I think he hypnotizes the crowd. He really does.
That's why he has the fan base he does.
Yeah,
it's just because he gives. He just gives and gives and gives.
Well, we also talked about drummers with the passing of Neil Peart, and he did say he is showing my age again, but for him, Carl Palmer is right up there with, or even better than Neil. I think you kind of got Mike a little.
Can you hear the grinding of the teeth? No, listen, dude. Carl Palmer is one of the greatest drummers of all time, and I'm not gonna argue too much about it because I'm not a huge ELP fan. I don't know. So I'll just say I don't know. Everyone has the subject is moot, Dom.
It is.
And actually, during that list, when we were talking, when you asked me about who do I think is going to take over of the greatest living drummers, I actually can't believe it's been bothering me for a while now that I forgot to name Brandela from Mastodon as one of the torch carriers for Neil. I can't believe I forgot him.
Well, you know what? That's what's going to happen, I guess, when you have these, not spur-of-the-moment questions, but although it was a spur-of-the-moment question because we saw that post kind of like as we were going.
Yeah.
And you missed one. So
well, I shouldn't have.
Well, look,
I'm embarrassed.
You missed it, so what?
I quit the show.
But you know what? You made up for it now. So
yeah. Carl Palmer is great, though. He is great. Better than Neil. I guess it's.
Steve wasn't familiar with some of the names that you had mentioned, and he'll definitely look them up. But
of songs or drummers.
The drummers.
Okay.
The drummers. Okay. So he was actually, and then he also was wondering what true audiophiles use to listen these days. You know, again, the question that we had brought up.
Format?
I think that's what he's talking about, because then he goes into Neil Young was pushing some high-grade audio system.
Well, systems are one thing, but as far as listening to, I think vinyl is the top.
But then he also talks about Bon Jovi during an interview, was talking about how he really enjoys listening to vinyl versus streaming. But, you know, he's also from that era. And
we've touched on that, though, you know, how audiophiles go berserk over vinyl. That's one of the main reasons vinyl had such a, you know, a comeback, a resurgence as far as sales go, and even bands and artists pushing out vinyl. I mean, dude, if you would have told me 20 years ago when I was doing my shopping at Target that I was going to see vinyl sold in Target, I'd be like, nah, no way. There's vinyl in Target, you know. So it's to me, it's just, it's funny. I find it funny.
He also wrote that he liked Morgan James.
Wow,
the music
hard not
and
to.
the voice, and he said that the Heart tune was really nice. Hard to compete with Ann Wilson's voice, but she did. And you know that's what I'm on my soapbox, talking the Morgan James up, because more people should be, you know, exposed to her and listening to her. And you know that's exactly why I played that song, is because people were exposed right here on the show versus saying, all right, I got to go check her out. Because you know, if you actually go to YouTube and type in Morgan James, there's a ton of YouTube videos of her doing a lot of songs covers, and she plays with a lot of different artists. So you wouldn't know what to look for, I guess, and you would be there for a long time because she's got a big catalog.
That's the thing, you know. Again, not to go on and beat a dead horse, but there's so many ways to find great artists.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of putting a little bit of time in. That's why I'm not going to go on when I mention the artist or the guitarist or the podcast or whatever. I'm not going to go on and on, because all you have to do is just type a name into any little search engine on the computer, whether it's iTunes Music, Spotify, Google, whatever your choice is, and you'll find these artists, and they're there.
And they also then bring up the related artists.
Bingo.
Right?
It's not that hard.
And then before you know it, you're on there for about an hour and a half. It's amazing.
How about 5 hours?
Well, you know,
or 10.
Well, I didn't want to talk about you.
No.
But what I'm saying is that you can get easily hooked, and then before you know it, time passes, and you're like, all right, well, you'll never get that time back. But that's actually a gift, because you're exposed to a lot of great artists out there.
If you love music and you like to do it. See, the thing is, I'm always constantly searching and finding. It's just some are better than others, or some will catch my ear or whatever. But there's always something new out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Bandcamp is my place. I can't stress enough how great Bandcamp is.
Okay, so Steve has a question. This is his last question, or his last topic. Discuss music you didn't like in the day, but after another listen, years later, it sounds good.
That's a good one.
And then
I think we're all guilty of that.
And then also vice versa, music you liked then, but don't get it now, and you don't like it now. I guess for him, it would be Bowie, post Ziggy, Stardust. I didn't like it a lot. I'd say I didn't like a lot of it back then, but now I listen, and it sounds good to him.
Our ears change throughout time. You know, we're always gonna have our favorites, and then how about stuff that our parents listened to? We're like, oh God, we were like, you know, like Barry Manilow for me. When my mother played Barry Manilow all the time, and I was like, oh, Barry Manilow again. But now you know, for years I loved Barry Manilow. For you know, my adult life, his songs are great. Talk about great pop artists for that time,
right?
You know, even something like Gloria Estefan. When I was a kid, I absolutely couldn't stand when my mother put her on. Like, her greatest hits are pretty good.
Yeah.
Her band was great. Her songs are catchy. You know, stuff like that. Like, you know, that I couldn't. Those are two things that just comes to the top of my head. But when she used to play, I was like, oh no, please, not Gloria Estefan again. But
Well, I have to admit that for me it would probably be. And look, I was a tunnel vision kid. I did listen to I was tunnel vision. I'm not gonna try and play. I'm not gonna try and deny that. I listened to rap and rock, and 80s metal, some pop. I did not listen to Led Zeppelin. If the song was on the radio, I would listen to it. If I was at a party, I wouldn't change it. Same thing with Bruce, and same thing with The Who. Now I find myself listening to so much more of them and appreciating them. And I'm not talking about just in the last couple of months. I'm talking in the last several years. Maybe in the last 10 years, I started to really, really focus on a lot of the music I missed back then because I was just so focused on. And like to his question, the vice versa, is a lot of that stuff that I listened to back then I don't listen to now.
The beauty of music is your ear will always grow as time goes on. And you'll always hear things either differently or the same. That's why I always say to a friend, when I argue with my friend about music and why I love it so much, is because when you have that album, a special album, and you put that album on 20 years after you bought it, it's still great. And you always want it to be still great. You always want it to still give you that feeling of the first time you listen to it, even if you listen to it a bazillion times in your life. A band like Zeppelin, obviously, when I was a kid growing up in the 80s, they weren't on the radio that much because radio music was the era of like the pop radio was coming in the 80s. That was huge. So there was no room for Zeppelin unless you went to the rock stations, which there even at that point weren't that many. Every station was hopping on playing Michael Jackson and Madonna and all of the other pop artists that were big during that time, and all the other pops that were coming out of the woodwork as the years went by. But like growing up in the 80s, especially if we weren't into rock heavily and we were moving more into just listening to whatever the radio offered to us, that's what we were going to be into.
Yep.
And then our ear grew, we got more into music, and just time went on. I mean, I didn't like Rush in the 80s. I wish I did. I didn't even love Van Halen yet until I bought a guitar and got into it in the late 80s. So there are tons of, I can go on and on with this list, but as far as stuff that I didn't like as a kid that I used to say, oh God, not again, you change.
Yeah.
Because it's reminiscent.
I would say Frank Sinatra also was a person who I would, if it was on, and my mom was listening to, 101.1, I'd listen to it.
Sure.
Wouldn't grab the CD when I was buying CDs. It wouldn't be the first one, but I would buy like the greatest hits. As I got older, though, I got to appreciate, and that's actually the good thing about the music back then. Do you really think that, let's just say, 20 years from now, our kids are going to say, let's listen to the Jonas Brothers? I don't think so.
Listen, there's more of a chance of them saying, let's listen to the Jonas Brothers than let's listen to Migos in 20 years from now. So, at least there's some music there, and there's something to take away from, where it's not just the beats. You know what I'm saying? There's something a little bit more in your heart. You still feel it. That's the way I look. I don't know who they're going to be listening to in 20 years from now.
It won't be as many as what we're listening to.
Definitely not, because there's more classic bands.
But you know what? Something. Can our parents say the same thing about us?
No, because I tell you, there was more for us, because the music industry changed big time in the late 60s, 70s. Especially the Beatles did it all, dude. The Beatles changed everything too. When they marketed the Beatles, think about it. The Beatles was the first boy band. We're not going to go on and on about the Beatles, but the way music was marketed and there were more radio stations, there were more record labels, there was more format to push stuff. Stores started popping up. You went from the small mom and pop record shops to the bigger record shops, then to the chain store record shops. So everything kind of changed throughout those years. So I think for us, especially if you want to tack on the 70s and the 80s and maybe even the early 90s combined, the classicness, because now you see Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Nirvana and Alice in Chains being deemed classic rock, which is hurtful, but
wow, yeah, but even Bon Jovi is considered classic rock.
Well, that's even before that time.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, we had tons and tons and tons of bands and artists and styles that are considered classic now. People will consider like the Smiths classic, or Depeche Mode, or Duran Duran.
Well, because they're old enough to be called classics.
Right. So I mean, like, even if you weren't a rocker then and you were shunning that music, it's just like, you know.
You buy a car today in 20, 25 years, it's a classic.
Right. But we were very fortunate because, and I say, just the way it was.
Well, you know what?
It was the industry too.
But the kids today won't know that. They'll disagree with us. all the time.
What happens as kids grow nowadays? You see them listening to Billy Joel. You see them listening to the Beatles.
Some people
right?
are.
When they're done with what they think they like, or what they have to feel like they like to fit in, once they get past that, you know what I'm saying? I think their classic rock at some point is going to be a lot of this like pop country they like when they listen to, which is good. It's because at least it's musicians making and writing music. But I think that's what they're going to lean back to for their nostalgia. They may still go see them at at shows like the Luke Bryans and the Chesneys and the Aldeans and Carrie Underwoods. So,
Definitely. Listen, Steve, thank you very much. And if you ever want to go direct, if you have an Instagram account, Mike at TSIM, to have some back and forth with Mike on Instagram. That
anytime. I'm always up for talking music. In case you didn't know.
Great questions, great feedback.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it very much. For now, I am Dom, and across from me is
Mike, and we are out.